Alea Parker woke to the hum of city traffic just outside her apartment, the sunlight filtering through her blinds, painting stripes across her desk. Thursday mornings were usually quiet, predictable: a cup of coffee, a stack of neatly organized folders, and a rhythm of tasks that kept her life orderly. Today, however, the courthouse awaited, and with it, an encounter she hadn't anticipated. A citation issued against her property, stemming from a dispute with her neighbor, had escalated to official legal proceedings. Simple in theory, but anyone who had dealt with bureaucracy knew that even small matters could spiral. She had prepared meticulously, her paperwork in order, every detail accounted for. What she hadn't prepared for was the subtle, sharp judgment she would face the moment she stepped inside. Tucked in the hidden pocket of her oversized gray hoodie was her White House security badge, unassuming to the casual eye, yet marking her as someone with access far beyond the average citizen. Alea didn't show it. Not here. Not yet. Today, it was merely a quiet shield, a secret reminder of authority she carried silently, one that had shaped her sense of confidence over the years. The courthouse loomed ahead, imposing and gray. She passed through the metal detectors with practiced ease, feeling the familiar hum of machines against her bag. Two officers blocked the hallway, their posture rigid, the kind of stance that spoke volumes. You do not belong here. Officer Klein, tall and imposing, stepped forward, extending an arm as if he could physically halt her from proceeding. Courtrooms for scheduled cases only. You lost? His tone was slow, deliberate, and dripping with condescension. Alea kept her voice calm and measured. I'm here for case 1142B. My hearing is scheduled for 9:30. Klein's eyes narrowed suspiciously. He reached for her identification, scanning it as though it might spontaneously reveal a lie. She handed over her state ID, expecting a routine check. Instead, he held it up between his fingers, scrutinizing it with a smirk that was both condescending and accusatory. Fake? He asked. Her blink was automatic, her disbelief quiet. Fake? Before she could respond, he clipped her wrist to his belt loop, not an arrest, but a gesture of intimidation designed to humiliate. The second officer shadowed him silently, his eyes alert to the hallway, perhaps anticipating the reaction of onlookers. Alea inhaled deeply, steadying herself, reminding herself that patience was a weapon and composure a shield. She had been trained to handle high-pressure situations in the White House, though here, in a local courthouse, it seemed absurd that such skills were necessary. The officers pushed open the courtroom doors, ushering her inside as murmurs spread through the gallery. Spectators turned, curiosity and judgment mingling in their expressions. Klein theatrically presented her to the judge as though she were a criminal, caught her trying to slip into court without proper ID. Your Honor claims she has a case. His words carried a mixture of disdain and misplaced authority. Judge Harmon, seasoned and perceptive, raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Alia's response was calm and deliberate. Your Honor, I am here legally. I have a citation to contest, Klein interrupted, his voice dripping with skepticism. We couldn't verify her identity. He dangled her ID before the judge, like a suspect's weapon. The judge's gaze fell on her wrists, noting the faint redness from where Klein had gripped her. Officers, uncuff her, he said, voice firm. Klein hesitated, visibly unsettled by the command. As Alea retrieved her documents, a metallic glint slipped from her pocket, a badge she had not intended to reveal. Its reflection caught the judge's eye instantly. Miss Parker, is that... He began. Yes, Your Honor, she said evenly. I work for the White House. I am a policy research assistant to Senior Advisor Michael Reyes. Her words hung in the air, shifting the atmosphere immediately. The gallery stirred. The officers froze. Klein's face paled, the smirk vanishing, replaced by a tension he couldn't disguise. His partner averted his eyes entirely, suddenly conscious of their misjudgment. Aaliyah's calm composure commanded the room. She had endured assumptions, humiliation, and skepticism, and yet here she stood unshaken. The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Officers, I expect a full report on your conduct." "This treatment is unacceptable," Klein faltered, opening his mouth, but the words failed him. His partner muttered something under his breath, meaningless under the weight of reality. She placed her case documents neatly on the bench. "Your Honor, the citation contains several alleged violations that are inaccurate. I have evidence that clarifies these points and disproves the claims. Photographs, property maps, and official records were laid out, each meticulously organized." Aaliyah spoke with precision, dismantling assumptions and highlighting procedural errors, demonstrating competence and preparation in every word. The courtroom was silent, captivated by her presence. Klein's pride and certainty had collapsed under her quiet authority. Spectators watched, some in disbelief, others in admiration. Judge Harmon's expression shifted, softened by respect but firm in his authority. "Miss Parker, your evidence is thorough. The citation is dismissed. Officers, your conduct will be reviewed formally." Aaliyah straightened her shoulders, collected her documents, and walked from the bench with a quiet satisfaction. She had won more than a legal battle. She had challenged assumptions, demanded respect, and shown that authority comes not from intimidation, but from preparation, clarity, and composure. Today was only the beginning. The courthouse doors closed softly behind Aaliyah, leaving her in a quiet corridor where the hum of the city outside seemed muted, almost suspended. She paused, adjusting the strap of her bag and taking a deliberate breath, letting the adrenaline of the morning dissipate. Victory had been hers, yet the encounter left a lingering awareness of how assumptions could shape actions. Officer Klein and his partner had judged her before a word was spoken, before facts could be examined. They had underestimated her, and in doing so, had revealed more about themselves than about her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Michael Reyes, her supervisor at the White House, appeared. "Check in when you're done. Heard about the courthouse situation." Well handled, Aaliyah allowed herself a private smile. In public, she had faced condescension, suspicion, and an almost palpable disbelief in her competence. In Washington, though, she was recognized for her skill and judgment. The acknowledgement from someone she trusted reinforced her own confidence, reminding her that respect, once earned, was a powerful affirmation of authority. As she walked toward her car, she noticed Klein and his partner lingering near the courthouse steps. Their expressions were guarded, tense, a visible mix of embarrassment and resentment. Klein's eyes flickered toward her for a moment, a silent acknowledgement that he had misjudged her entirely. The second officer avoided her gaze completely, seeming to shrink under the weight of their error. Aaliyah ignored them, her pace steady and calm, her presence composed. The lesson had been delivered, and it was clear who had emerged with authority intact. Inside her car, she placed her bag on the passenger seat and allowed herself to exhale fully. The courthouse, once a place of intimidation, now felt like a stage where her competence had spoken louder than any assumption or prejudice. She reflected on the faces in the gallery, the subtle nods, the looks of surprise, and the quiet admiration from strangers who had witnessed the officer's misstep. She understood that small acts of dignity and preparation could ripple outward, influencing perceptions in ways that went beyond the immediate moment. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a news notification. "Young woman challenges court citation. Reveals White House role, officers under review." Aaliyah frowned. The story had spread faster than she expected. She hadn't sought publicity, but the truth had a way of asserting itself, especially when it disrupted expectations. The article highlighted her age and appearance, the officer's mistakes, and the courtroom drama. Few emphasized the preparation and professionalism she had demonstrated. She scrolled briefly, noting the sensational tone, but she didn't dwell on it. Facts had been presented, justice had been served, and she had maintained composure. Driving home, she considered the broader implications. Officer Klein's assumptions were not isolated incidents. They were indicative of systemic bias and the casual judgments many made daily. She had turned what could have been a humiliating ordeal into a demonstration of authority through calm, preparation, and clarity. This was a reminder of the invisible power she carried in Washington skills, honed in briefings, policy meetings, and high-pressure environments that could be applied effectively even in unexpected places like a local courthouse. By the time she reached her apartment, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the streets. She parked, gathered her belongings, and allowed herself a moment of reflection. The courthouse had tested her composure and resilience in ways she hadn't anticipated, but she had emerged with her dignity intact and her authority recognized. More than a legal victory, the morning had reinforced her understanding that respect was earned not through intimidation or status, but through clarity, preparation, and poise. Once inside, she unpacked her bag and reviewed the documents she had brought. Ensuring every detail was accounted for, Michael Reyes' text appeared again, proud of how you handled it. Your calm and precision turned what could have been a mess into a lesson for everyone involved. Alia smiled softly. She had been underestimated, judged by superficial standards, and yet she had navigated the encounter with skill and authority. The recognition from someone she respected was a quiet affirmation of her approach. Evening fell, and Aaliyah sat at her desk, reflecting on the courthouse experience. Officer Klein and his partner had acted on assumptions, their actions revealing both personal bias and procedural misjudgment. Her victory had immediate consequences for them, the review, the accountability, but it also carried broader implications. Anyone observing the situation could learn that preparation and composure could dismantle preconceived notions faster than confrontation. That dignity in the face of prejudice had a transformative power. She journaled carefully, detailing her strategies, deliberate breathing, precise language, calm tone, and unwavering confidence. These were lessons for herself as much as for others, reminders of how to navigate authority and prejudice simultaneously. Her experience in the White House had prepared her for scrutiny, but the courthouse had provided a tangible demonstration of influence outside her usual sphere. Here, facts and composure had outweighed assumptions, teaching a subtle but important lesson to those who had judged her prematurely. Her phone buzzed again, a message from a former classmate. Saw the news. Wow, proud of you. Alia smiled, realizing her experience had inspired recognition beyond her professional circle. She hadn't sought attention, yet the impact of her composure, intelligence, and authority was already resonating with others. Competence, integrity, and preparation had spoken louder than bias or assumptions. Later, as the city lights glimmered outside her window, she reflected on the broader significance. Officer Klein's misjudgment was a microcosm of societal assumptions, but her response demonstrated that knowledge, preparation, and calm authority could shift perceptions quickly and decisively. The courthouse had tested more than her patience. It had tested her ability to project authority in a space where it had been challenged. She had passed, and the lesson extended beyond her personal victory. Respect, once earned through clarity and poise, could not be dismissed. As she prepared for bed, Alea felt a quiet confidence settle over her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready. The courthouse had been a proving ground, and she had emerged not only with her dignity intact, but with the certainty that intelligence and preparation could command respect in any arena. Her path was clear: to continue navigating a world often quick to judge, armed with the knowledge that true authority resides in skill, composure, and unwavering self-assurance. The following morning, Aaliyah arrived at the White House earlier than usual. the air crisp and the city streets still humming with the quiet rhythm of dawn. Despite her early arrival, the memory of the courthouse incident clung to her, a subtle tension in her chest. She had expected scrutiny in the halls of power, but what she had faced yesterday was different, raw, unfiltered, and public. Officer Klein's assumptions, the restraint, and the faint bruises on her wrists were reminders that bias could surface anywhere. Yet in these corridors, she wielded authority not through intimidation, but through skill and presence. Her work here had always demanded discretion, accuracy, and the ability to command attention without raising her voice. Yesterday had been a test of those very qualities in an unexpected arena. As she walked past colleagues in the West Wing, she sensed the whispers, some curious, some admiring, others reflective. People had heard of the courthouse scene. Washington was a small world for such stories. Alia ignored the sidelong glances, focusing instead on the briefings and memos that filled her morning. Each interaction required the same careful precision she had used yesterday: measured words, confident posture, and an uncheckable attention to detail. The lessons of the courthouse carried forward. Preparation and composure could turn assumptions into opportunities to teach, correct, and inspire. By mid-morning, she was in Michael Rhea's office, reviewing policy drafts and proposed amendments. He glanced up from his papers, a faint smile on his lips. "I heard about the courthouse," he said quietly, his tone blending concern with respect. "Handled well," Aaliyah nodded. "Yes, sir. It was challenging, but I presented the facts clearly. The citation was dismissed and the officers involved are under review." Reyes leaned back, his eyes reflecting approval and recognition. "You demonstrated exactly the kind of calm, precise authority that is invaluable here." "Well done." Alea felt a quiet reassurance. The courtroom had been a microcosm of broader societal biases, but here she was recognized not only for her competence, but also for her ability to maintain dignity under scrutiny. She thought briefly of Officer Klein and his partner, and the way their assumptions had crumbled under the weight of facts and composure. Their behavior had mirrored a systemic issue she had encountered before: the tendency to judge superficially and act prematurely. Yesterday's victory had been personal, but its resonance extended far beyond her own experience. After the meeting, she returned to her office, unpacking her documents and reviewing notes for upcoming briefings. The courthouse incident replayed in her mind, not the humiliation of being restrained, but the moment her authority had been revealed. The metallic glint of her badge, the silence that fell over the courtroom, and the undeniable shift in Klein's demeanor were imprinted in her memory. It was proof that preparedness and poise could neutralize bias faster than confrontation ever could. An email notification popped up from the courthouse administration, detailing the formal review of the officer's conduct. Alia read carefully, noting the acknowledgement that her treatment had been inappropriate. Seeing the matter officially documented reinforced her understanding of accountability. Assumptions and bias had consequences, and the truth could not be suppressed indefinitely. She allowed herself a small, private sense of satisfaction. Justice had been served, not loudly or aggressively, but quietly, firmly, and undeniably. Evening fell over the city, the warm glow of streetlights reflecting through her apartment window as Alaya journaled about the day. She wrote about the strategies that had kept her composed: measured breathing, calm tone, and deliberate pacing. She reflected on how yesterday's experience had demonstrated that authority did not come from intimidation or age, but from clarity, competence, and self-assured presence. She detailed lessons she could carry forward, not just for herself, but for others who might face similar prejudice or assumptions in the future. Her phone buzzed again, a message from a former classmate. "Saw the news. Wow. Proud of you." Aaliyah smiled. She hadn't sought attention, yet the impact of her calm and competence was spreading, touching those who admired dignity and intelligence in action. The courthouse had been more than a legal proceeding. It had been a demonstration of how bias could be confronted and corrected through presence, preparation, and undeniable professionalism. Later, she considered the wider implications. Officer Klein's judgment was a small reflection of systemic issues, yet the lesson of the day was universal. Assumptions could be dismantled, credibility could be asserted, and composure could command respect in any arena. The courthouse had been a proving ground for these truths, and she had passed with clarity and poise. It wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a subtle demonstration that authority, when wielded thoughtfully, could inspire acknowledgement, reflection, and ultimately change. As she prepared for bed, Aaliyah reflected on the events with quiet determination. Challenges were inevitable, bias, assumptions, and misjudgment were constants in both her personal and professional life, but she felt equipped. The courthouse had taught her that intelligence and preparation could neutralize prejudice, that poise could amplify authority, and that respect, once earned, could not easily be revoked. She allowed herself a final deep breath, letting the weight of the day settle comfortably on her shoulders. The city outside glimmered, alive with countless stories and assumptions, many untested, many unjust. But she had faced hers with dignity, skill, and uncheckable calm. Tomorrow would bring new tests, but Aaliyah knew she could meet them with the same precision and quiet authority that had carried her through the courthouse and beyond. And in that realization, she found a profound sense of empowerment, one that would carry her forward, unafraid of judgment, prepared for challenge, and resolute in her own strength. The next morning, Aaliyah arrived at the White House early. The corridors still quiet, filled with the soft hum of air systems and distant footsteps. Despite the calm, her mind replayed yesterday's courthouse encounter. It had been a test one that revealed more than she expected about human assumptions, bias, and the subtle power of presence. Officer Klein's rigid posture, the way he had clipped her wrist, and the whispered judgments from his partner had all been reminders of the everyday prejudice that could manifest, even in mundane settings. Yet she had turned it into a moment of authority, of clarity, and of undeniable competence. As she moved through the halls, she noticed subtle glances from colleagues, some curious, others respectful, a few cautious. The courthouse story had traveled quickly, and Washington, as always, absorbed such narratives with a blend of fascination and analysis. Aaliyah ignored the whispers, focusing instead on the day's agenda. Her meetings demanded precision, attention, and strategic thinking, skills she had exercised during the courtroom incident without anyone outside her professional circle realizing it. Preparation and poise were not just tools, they were her armor, her language, and her influence. By mid-morning, she was seated across from Senior Advisor Michael Reyes, reviewing policy drafts. He looked up, a faint smile crossing his face. "I heard about the courthouse incident," he said quietly, a tone that mixed concern with acknowledgement. "Handled well," Aaliyah nodded, keeping her voice steady. "Yes, sir." The citation was dismissed, and the officers involved are under formal review. I presented the facts clearly and calmly, without escalation. Reyes leaned back, nodding approvingly. "That's exactly the approach we value: composure, clarity, and authority, without confrontation." "Well done." The brief meeting reinforced her sense of purpose. Yesterday had tested her outside the walls of government power, but today reminded her that her skills were transferable. She could command attention, assert authority, and navigate bias wherever it appeared. The courthouse had been a proving ground, revealing the invisible dynamics of assumption and judgment, and she had emerged with her composure intact. Ray's acknowledgement reinforced what she already knew. Competence, prepared and expressed with poise, demanded respect, even in spaces where bias might initially cloud judgment. After the meeting, Aaliyah returned to her office to organize documents and prepare for the upcoming week. Her mind drifted briefly back to the courthouse officers, imagining their self-reflection, their reports, and the awkward explanations they would need to submit. Their assumptions had cost them credibility, but they had also highlighted an important reality. Authority and respect were not granted by uniform or posture, but earned through clarity, skill, and composure. Each observation, each reflection, strengthened her understanding of how to navigate both professional and public challenges. An email arrived from the courthouse administration confirming the internal review of the officer's conduct. Ajaya read carefully, noting the acknowledgement that her treatment had been inappropriate. Seeing it formally documented was validating. It confirmed that her calm persistence and prepared approach had tangible consequences beyond the courtroom. Justice, she realized, could be subtle, measured, and profoundly effective without raising a single voice in anger. As evening approached, Aaliyah sat at her desk with her journal. She wrote about the incident, detailing the strategies that had kept her composed. Deliberate breathing, controlled tone, and systematic presentation of facts. The courthouse experience had provided lessons in patience, observation, and authority. Bias was pervasive, but preparation, knowledge, and quiet confidence could dismantle it in a single moment. Her journal reflected her growth, her tactical thinking, and her ability to convert challenge into opportunity. Her phone buzzed again. A text from a former classmate read, "Saw the news, incredible, proud of you." Alia smiled softly. Recognition was not what she sought, yet it reinforced the reality that her competence, integrity, and calm had resonated far beyond her expectations. The courthouse incident had been a microcosm of broader societal assumptions, biases that could be challenged effectively, decisively, and respectfully. Later, she reflected on the officer's behavior with a measured perspective. Their assumptions were symptomatic of a larger issue. People often acted on incomplete information, judging before understanding. The courthouse had been a proving ground, and she had emerged unshaken. Her victory was not merely personal. It was symbolic, a quiet lesson in authority and perception, demonstrating that respect is earned and can withstand scrutiny. As night settled over the city, Alaya prepared for bed, the lights of Washington flickering softly through her window. She thought about tomorrow, about the challenges and biases she would inevitably face. The courthouse had been just one test, and she knew others would follow. But she felt ready, fortified by yesterday's experience and today's reflections. Authority, she understood, was not about asserting dominance. It was about clarity, preparation, and the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing one's own competence. Before closing her journal, she paused to write one final thought. Yesterday was not just a legal victory, but a demonstration of the power of presence. Assumptions could be dismantled, credibility could be asserted, and composure could command respect. These were lessons she would carry forward, not just for herself, but for anyone who faced doubt, prejudice, or misjudgment. With that, she set her pen down, confident that she could navigate whatever challenges awaited, grounded in skill, poise, and quiet authority. The next day, Alea returned to the White House, the morning light cutting through the corridors in golden streaks. Despite the usual hustle, a quiet tension lingered around her. Word of the courthouse incident had already traveled, creating subtle ripples among staff and advisors. Some offered discreet nods of acknowledgement, others stole glances, unsure how to approach her. Even the most seasoned colleagues seemed momentarily caught off guard by her calm authority, the way she had handled herself under scrutiny. Yesterday had been a test of composure. Today was a test of influence, the quiet power one held when preparation met opportunity. She moved through the halls with a measured stride, her mind reviewing her schedule, policy briefings, interdepartmental meetings, and a series of sensitive communications. Each required the same focus she had applied in the courthouse, though the stakes differed. Here, influence mattered as much as competence. Perception and respect were essential to effectiveness. The lessons of the prior day were clear. Authority was not granted, it was demonstrated. And Elia had learned that even small moments could reinforce credibility in ways that resonated far beyond the immediate interaction. By mid-morning, she was in a meeting with a team from the Office of Legislative Affairs discussing proposed amendments to an ongoing policy initiative. While reviewing the documents, one junior advisor asked a pointed question, perhaps attempting to test her knowledge, or maybe simply probing her authority in the wake of the courthouse story. Agia answered calmly, her voice deliberate, each word precise and backed by evidence. She noticed the subtle shift in the room. Her colleagues, previously uncertain, leaned in, absorbing her insights. The authority she commanded was quiet, almost invisible, yet unmistakable. Alaya reflected on how yesterday's experience had subtly changed her perspective. Officer Klein's assumptions, the dismissive gestures, the visible tension when her credentials were revealed, all of it underscored how superficial judgments could distort behavior. The courtroom had been a small, contained world. The White House was far larger, yet the principles remained the same. Composure, preparation, and clarity were tools that could neutralize prejudice, earn respect, and assert influence without confrontation. She realized that her ability to command attention in a setting came not from her title alone, but from the deliberate use of those skills. After the meeting, she returned to her office to review messages and respond to inquiries. Among them was a note from Michael Reyes. Your approach yesterday and today demonstrates strategic leadership. Keep observing, keep applying, and your influence will continue to grow. Elia smiled quietly. Recognition from someone she trusted reinforced the importance of measured authority, the kind that emerges naturally from competence and thoughtful execution rather than loud assertion. Later, an urgent notification came from the courthouse regarding the officer's review. The document outlined formal disciplinary measures, noting their failure to follow proper procedure and the unnecessary escalation that had occurred. Alia read carefully, appreciating the procedural confirmation that bias and assumption had consequences. Seeing the system respond, even in this small way, reinforced her understanding that accountability, coupled with preparation, could transform moments of injustice into lessons for others. The afternoon brought a briefing on a separate initiative, requiring Alia to navigate conflicting opinions and assert a clear strategy. She drew on the same principles she had applied in the courthouse: methodical presentation of facts, calm explanation of reasoning, and quiet confidence that left little room for misjudgment. Her colleagues responded with deference, not because she commanded it overtly, but because she had demonstrated competence in a way that demanded acknowledgement. Influence, she realized, was cultivated through consistent, composed demonstration of skill. By evening, the city outside her window was bathed in a warm amber glow. Aliyah sat at her desk, reflecting on the day. The courthouse had been a crucible, a test of composure under the weight of bias. Today had been a reinforcement, a demonstration of how authority could extend beyond a single encounter. Officer Klein's misjudgment had been a stark reminder that assumptions were often flawed, and that clarity, preparation, and measured action could correct them swiftly. She knew that influence, when exercised thoughtfully, could shape perception and inspire confidence without ever raising a voice. Her phone buzzed again. A friend texted, "Still amazed at how you handled that courtroom incident." Truly impressive. Alia allowed herself a brief smile. The recognition, though welcome, was secondary to the internal understanding she carried. That authority is a practice, not a privilege. That composure and preparation were the true currency of influence. And that judgment without evidence is always fragile. As night settled, she reflected on the subtle lessons embedded in each interaction, in meetings, in briefings, in casual hallway exchanges. Yesterday had taught her to assert dignity in the face of misjudgment. Today had shown that the ripple effect of competence could extend quietly, shaping opinions and reinforcing credibility. The courthouse incident had been more than a legal matter. It had been a masterclass in perception, preparation, and quiet influence. Alaya closed her journal for the night, feeling grounded. Challenges would continue, both visible and unseen. Bias, assumptions, and scrutiny were constants, but she now understood more deeply how to navigate them. Authority was not merely a title or credential, it was a presence cultivated over time, demonstrated through preparation, calm, and unwavering confidence. The courthouse had tested her, the White House was testing her still, and she was ready, fortified with the clarity, skill, and quiet power that could transform any challenge into opportunity. The next morning, Alaya arrived at the White House, feeling a quiet tension lingering from the prior week. The courthouse incident had left more than just a ripple of recognition. It had drawn attention, subtle but persistent in ways she hadn't anticipated. Some colleagues approached her with tentative respect, others observed from a distance, and a few seemed wary, unsure of how to navigate the dynamic she now carried. It was a reminder that authority, once revealed, altered interactions in unexpected ways. The test was no longer just about competence. It was about influence and perception. Her first meeting of the day involved a briefing with a cross-departmental team tasked with evaluating a new policy initiative. As the discussion unfolded, she noted the subtle shifts in behavior. Junior staff who had once dominated conversations now paused, listening more carefully. Senior members exchanged glances, seemingly reassessing the weight of her input. The lessons of the courthouse were alive in the room. Composure and preparation commanded attention far more effectively than loud assertion. Alaya's calm, measured tone carried authority without the need for dramatics, and every fact she presented was backed by evidence. Influence, she realized, was cultivated quietly, often imperceptibly, yet it reshaped interactions immediately. After the briefing, she retreated to her office to review correspondence. An email from Michael Rios appeared. Your ability to navigate challenging situations with calm precision has not gone unnoticed. Keep observing, analyzing, and applying. Influence is much about subtlety as skill. Alia smiled at the note, appreciating the recognition. She didn't need public praise. The understanding of her own authority and the respect earned through competence were enough. Yet it was reassuring to know that her supervisors valued not just the outcomes of her work, but the way she conducted herself in high-pressure scenarios. Mid-morning brought a call from the courthouse administration. They sought clarification regarding the officer's conduct review, asking for a concise account of the events. Alia provided a careful, factual summary, deliberately emphasizing the procedural missteps in her own professional demeanor. She maintained a tone that was firm but neutral, ensuring that her account would be received as objective and credible. Even in this interaction, she recognized a subtle shift in how she was perceived. The officer's earlier assumptions had been replaced with respect for her professionalism and insight. During lunch, Alaya reflected on the broader implications. Officer Klein's judgmental behavior had been emblematic of a larger systemic issue, and yet the courthouse had also shown her the power of preparation and composure. By staying calm and precise, she had turned potential humiliation into a demonstration of authority. The White House, she realized, was filled with similarly complex dynamics, biases, unspoken assumptions, and moments where subtle influence mattered more than overt displays of power. Every interaction was a test of her ability to navigate both perception and reality. The afternoon brought another challenge, a policy meeting with conflicting viewpoints from several departments. Alia presented her research and proposed solutions, carefully addressing objections with logic and evidence. Her colleagues listened intently, recognizing the depth of her preparation. Questions were answered without hesitation, and alternative perspectives were acknowledged and integrated where appropriate. By the end of the meeting, the conversation had shifted from skepticism to collaboration. Once again, she witnessed the quiet ripple effect of competence. Influence expanded not through force, but through clarity, poise, and unwavering confidence. Later in the day, she returned to her office, taking a moment to organize her thoughts. Her journal lay open, pages already filled with reflections on yesterday and the courthouse lessons. She wrote about how subtle bias could impact judgment, how calm composure could neutralize confrontation, and how influence was most effective when exercised thoughtfully. The incidents in the courthouse had taught her that authority was not given. It was demonstrated repeatedly and consistently through preparation, evidence, and measured presence. Each day at the White House provided another opportunity to apply these lessons in a broader, more complex environment. Her phone buzzed. A friend sent a message. "Your courtroom experience is inspiring. You handled that with such calm and authority amazing." Alia smiled softly, recognizing that even outside the corridors of power, the impact of her actions had resonated. Respect, she reflected, was a tangible outcome of consistency and skill, and her journey had made her increasingly aware of how subtle demonstrations of authority could ripple outward in ways both visible and unseen. As evening approached, she reviewed the internal communications from the courthouse. The disciplinary measures against the officers were being formalized, a quiet but meaningful confirmation that misjudgment had consequences. She considered the broader implications. Assumptions and bias could be confronted effectively, and measured action could transform moments of injustice into lessons for others. Authority, when applied correctly, was not about dominance. It was about clarity, preparation, and integrity. By nightfall, Alea sat quietly at her desk, reflecting on the day. The courthouse had been a test of patience and composure. Today had been a demonstration of influence and perception. Both experiences reinforced a truth she had long understood. Preparation and poise could command respect even in spaces dominated by assumptions, and authority was earned not by title or force, but through consistent competence and thoughtful action. As she prepared for bed, she felt a renewed sense of focus. The challenges ahead, bias, skepticism, and scrutiny would be inevitable, but she was ready. She had faced misjudgment, maintained her composure, and asserted her authority. The courthouse had been a proving ground. The White House was an arena for ongoing demonstration of skill and influence. She closed her journal, confident in her ability to navigate whatever lay ahead, grounded in clarity, preparation, and quiet, undeniable authority. The next morning, Alea arrived at the White House with a quiet sense of determination. The courthouse incident was no longer a fresh memory. It had become a lesson etched into her awareness. The subtle, lingering tension around her reflected how perceptions had shifted in her favor. Yet she knew that influence required continuous demonstration. Authority was never static. It was reinforced in every interaction, every decision, every measured word. Today would be another test, not of legal skill, but of how she navigated the intricate web of attention, expectation, and scrutiny. She moved through the corridors, greeting colleagues with a calm nod, her posture composed and purposeful. Whispers and glances followed her in subtle waves, and she noted them with careful observation. Some sought validation, others evaluated her reactions, and a few hesitated as though unsure how to engage with someone who had silently demonstrated such competence. The courthouse had provided a singular, dramatic lesson in authority. The White House required a more nuanced, consistent exercise of influence. Alea understood that the small, deliberate actions, the way she spoke, listened, and presented information shaped perception just as decisively as any overt display of power. Her first meeting involved a review of policy proposals with a group of senior advisors. One member, previously skeptical of her input, questioned a recommendation with a pointed tone, likely testing her composure. Alia responded with calm precision, breaking down her analysis into clear, evidence-backed points. She anticipated objections and addressed them before they could escalate, creating a rhythm of conversation that left little room for doubt. By the end of the session, the advisor nodded, subtly acknowledging the depth of her preparation. In that small gesture, Alaya recognized the quiet power of consistency, how competence repeatedly demonstrated reshaped assumptions. After the meeting, she retreated to her office to review correspondence and pending reports. Her phone buzzed with a notification from Michael Reyes. Your ability to command attention without confrontation continues to impress. Remember, influence grows quietly but is always observed. She smiled softly, appreciating the recognition. Influence, she knew, was not about assertion or visibility. It was about consistency, clarity, and integrity. The courthouse had been a single intense moment. Here, influence accumulated through daily acts of measured authority. Midday brought an unexpected interruption. An aide approached her with a request from the chief of staff, a review of a sensitive communication before it went public. Alia examined the document, noting areas that could be misinterpreted or misread. Her annotations were precise, her suggestions subtle but crucial. When the chief of staff reviewed her work, his expression shifted from cautious curiosity to respect. Small actions like this reinforced the lesson she had learned in the courthouse. Authority is often invisible until it manifests in competence and judgment under pressure. During lunch, she reflected quietly on the courthouse incident. Officer Klein's assumptions had been blatant. His partner's passive compliance had amplified the tension. Yet their behavior had also illustrated a larger truth. Bias, when confronted calmly and with evidence, could be corrected instantly. Yesterday's courtroom triumph had been visible, dramatic, and undeniable. Today, her victories were quieter, unfolding in careful decisions, subtle corrections, and consistent professionalism. Influence, she realized, had multiple dimensions, some observed by the public, others noted only by those who watched closely. The afternoon involved a cross-departmental briefing on a policy proposal with potential political implications. Alia presented her research systematically, anticipating questions and counterpoints. Her calm tone and measured responses projected authority, and colleagues responded with attention and engagement. She noticed small nods of agreement, subtle shifts in posture, and the way participants deferred to her insights without overtly acknowledging it. The courthouse had been a dramatic demonstration of authority. Today, it was being reinforced quietly, repeatedly, in real time. Later, she returned to her office, organizing notes and reflecting on the day. The officer's review from the courthouse had progressed, and she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that accountability was underway. Beyond that, she recognized a broader pattern. Respect and influence were built incrementally, validated in each interaction, and reinforced by consistent composure and preparation. Authority was as much about what people observed over time as it was about a single defining moment. Her phone buzzed again with a message from a colleague. Still amazed at how you handled the courthouse. Your calm authority speaks volumes. Alia allowed herself a soft smile. Recognition was gratifying, but more importantly, she understood the lessons embedded in every interaction. Composure under pressure, consistent competence, and strategic presence shaped perception more effectively than confrontation or force. As night settled over the city, Alia sat at her desk, reviewing her journal. She reflected on the subtle victories of the day, the shifts in perception, the quiet acknowledgments, the confidence earned through repeated competence. The courthouse had tested her dramatically, but here influence was cultivated deliberately, observed closely, and reinforced daily. She closed her journal, feeling grounded and prepared. Challenges would continue, assumptions, scrutiny, and bias were constants. but she was equipped to navigate them with precision, composure, and quiet authority. Before turning off the lights, she paused for a final thought. Yesterday had taught her that authority could be revealed dramatically. Today had taught her that it was strengthened incrementally. Both were essential, both were powerful. And with that understanding, she felt ready for whatever new challenges awaited. The next morning, Aaliyah arrived at the White House with a heightened sense of awareness. The courthouse incident was no longer a distant event. It had become a reference point in how others perceived her. Some colleagues approached with cautious curiosity, others watched from the sidelines, and a few seemed uncertain how to engage with someone who had demonstrated such quiet authority. Alia knew that influence was cumulative, built not just through dramatic moments, but through consistent, precise actions. Today would test her ability to navigate observation, expectation, and subtle scrutiny all at once. As she moved through the corridors, she noticed subtle cues, a whisper here, a sideways glance there, small gestures of acknowledgement that revealed attention had shifted. Influence, she realized, was rarely loud. It manifested quietly in the way others adjusted their behavior, consulted her opinion, or hesitated before challenging her. The courthouse had been an intense, visible test of authority. Here, the test was incremental and pervasive. Each interaction mattered, each decision shaped perception, and each measured response reinforced the credibility she had begun to establish. Her first meeting involved a policy briefing with a group of senior advisors. One member, previously dismissive, posed a pointed question designed to probe her expertise. Alia responded with calm precision, laying out her analysis with evidence and anticipating potential objections. The room shifted subtly as colleagues leaned in, nodding to themselves, reassessing not only her position but the value of her input. She noted the change without drawing attention to it. Influence, she understood, was most effective when quietly asserted. After the meeting, she returned to her office to review a series of sensitive communications. A message from Michael Reyes appeared. Your measured authority continues to set the standard. Influence grows quietly but observably. Keep applying your skills thoughtfully. Alaya allowed herself a small smile. Influence was not about recognition, it was about consistency, clarity, and integrity. The courthouse had been dramatic, but the real measure of authority was in the cumulative impact of daily interactions, where composure and preparation quietly shifted perceptions. Mid-morning brought an unexpected challenge. An aide handed her a request from the chief of staff, asking for a review of a high-stakes memo before it was disseminated publicly. Alaya examined the document meticulously, identifying ambiguities, refining language, and ensuring precision in tone. When she returned it, the chief of staff's expression had changed subtly from guarded skepticism to recognition of her competence. This, she reflected, was the essence of influence, subtle, repeated, and undeniable, without ever needing a show of force or confrontation. During lunch, she reflected on the courthouse incident. Officer Klein's assumptions had been blatant, his partner's compliance passive, yet both had been corrected in a single moment of quiet authority. That experience had been dramatic, but today's victories were quieter, decisions made with precision, influence asserted through consistency, respect earned through careful judgment. She realized that authority had many dimensions, some public and visible, others subtle and observed only by those paying close attention. The afternoon involved a cross-departmental strategy session. Alia presented her research, anticipating questions and counterpoints with calm authority. Her colleagues responded with attention, nods, and engagement, subtly deferring to her expertise. The courthouse had shown her how authority could be revealed under pressure. Today it was being reinforced quietly, steadily, through competence and composure. Influence, she understood, was cumulative, an invisible thread woven through repeated demonstrations of skill. Later, she returned to her office, organizing her notes and reflecting on the day. The courthouse officer's review had advanced, and she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing accountability was in motion. Beyond that, she recognized a broader truth. Authority and influence were cultivated through preparation, clarity, and consistency, and every interaction contributed to the perception of competence. The courthouse had tested her dramatically. The White House was testing her quietly, persistently, and in ways that shaped outcomes incrementally. Her phone buzzed again with a message from a friend, still amazed at how you handled that courthouse situation. You've got an incredible way of asserting calm authority. Alia smiled softly. Recognition was gratifying, but the deeper lesson was clear. Composure, consistency, and preparation were the true instruments of influence. Each subtle action, each carefully chosen word, reinforced the credibility she carried, shaping the perception of those around her. As night fell over the city, she sat at her desk, journaling about the lessons of the day. The courthouse had been a visible test of authority. Today had been a demonstration of how influence accumulated quietly through thoughtful action and consistent composure. Bias, assumptions, and scrutiny were constants, but she was learning how to navigate them, asserting her authority without aggression and influencing outcomes without confrontation. Before turning off the lights, she paused to reflect. Yesterday and today had taught her two complementary truths. Dramatic moments reveal authority, but sustained influence is quiet, subtle, and cumulative. Both are necessary. Both are powerful. And with that understanding, she felt prepared for whatever challenges awaited, fortified by competence, guided by clarity, and confident in the quiet authority she now wielded with precision. The morning sun streamed through the White House windows, illuminating the corridors with a quiet brilliance. Alia entered with a steady, measured pace, aware that her presence had begun to shift the subtle dynamics around her. The courthouse incident was no longer just a story, it had become a reference point for colleagues, an example of her composure under scrutiny, and a silent benchmark of competence. Some observed her with curiosity, others with newfound respect, and a few hesitated, unsure how to respond to the authority she had quietly demonstrated. Today promised new challenges, testing not only her skills, but her ability to navigate heightened attention and expectation. Her first meeting of the day involved a briefing with senior advisors on an emerging policy initiative. One participant, previously dismissive, presented a pointed objection, attempting to challenge her recommendations. Alia responded calmly, articulating her reasoning with clarity, supporting every statement with evidence, and anticipating counterpoints. Her measured responses subtly shifted the room's energy. Colleagues who had previously questioned her now leaned forward, acknowledging the depth of her preparation. She understood that influence was not demonstrated through force, but through consistent clarity and quiet authority. After the briefing, she returned to her office to review a series of sensitive communications. An email from Michael Reyes appeared. Your steady handling of complex situations continues to set a standard. Influence is cumulative, observed, and respected. Keep applying your skills thoughtfully. Alia allowed herself a small smile. The courthouse had provided a dramatic, visible lesson in authority, but here, influence was cultivated incrementally, in ways that reshaped perceptions quietly yet profoundly. Mid-morning brought an unexpected task. The chief of staff requested her review of a communication draft destined for public release. The document contained potential ambiguities that could be misinterpreted or politicized. Alaya meticulously refined language, ensuring clarity, precision, and a tone that maintained credibility. When she returned the document, the chief of staff's reaction subtly shifted. Guarded skepticism gave way to acknowledgement, respect conveyed through a simple nod. Authority, she reflected, often worked in silence observable in outcomes rather than declarations. Lunch offered a brief pause, and Alea reflected on the courthouse incident. Officer Klein's assumptions and the passive compliance of his partner had been obvious, yet in a single moment of calm authority, the imbalance had been corrected. That experience had been dramatic. Today's victories were quieter, unfolding in careful decisions, precise communication, and subtle shifts in perception. Authority, she realized, existed in multiple dimensions, some visible to the public, others perceived only by those attentive to nuance. The afternoon briefing presented further complexity. A cross-departmental team debated strategic priorities with competing interests. Alia presented her research systematically, addressing objections before they fully emerge and navigating conflicting perspectives with calm precision. Colleagues responded with engagement, nods, and subtle deference. The courthouse had shown how authority could emerge in a single dramatic moment. Today, it unfolded gradually, reinforced through competence, clarity, and poise. Influence, she understood, was an accumulation of these moments, imperceptible yet transformative. Later, in her office, she reviewed ongoing communications from the courthouse. The disciplinary review of Officer Klein and his partner was advancing, a quiet affirmation that procedural accountability had consequences. Beyond personal vindication, the situation illustrated a broader principle. Bias and assumptions could be challenged effectively, and measured authority could transform moments of misjudgment into enduring lessons for others. Preparation, composure, and integrity were the truest instruments of influence. Her phone buzzed again with a message from a friend. Still amazed at your courthouse composure. Incredible calm and authority. Alia smiled softly. Recognition was secondary. The real satisfaction lay in understanding how subtle. Consistent demonstrations of competence shaped perception, influenced outcomes, and reinforced credibility. Respect was earned not by titles, loudness, or confrontation, but through repeated, deliberate demonstration of skill. Evening fell, casting warm light over the city streets below. Alea sat at her desk, journaling about the day. She wrote about the subtle victories, the shifts in perception, and the quiet accumulation of influence. The courthouse had been a dramatic test of composure and authority. Today had demonstrated how influence could expand quietly yet decisively, reshaping the perceptions of those around her. Bias, scrutiny, and assumptions were constants, but she had learned to navigate them effectively, asserting authority without aggression and influencing outcomes without confrontation. Before turning off the lights, she paused to reflect. Yesterday and today had revealed complementary truths. Dramatic moments could reveal authority instantly, but sustained influence was subtle, cumulative, and enduring. Both forms were essential. Both were powerful. With that understanding, she felt ready for the challenges ahead, fortified by skill, composure, and quiet authority that could navigate scrutiny, assumptions, and high expectations alike. The next morning, Alea arrived at the White House with her usual calm, measured stride. Yet beneath the exterior, she felt a heightened awareness of the subtle power dynamics around her. The courthouse incident had left an indelible mark, not just on her own confidence, but on how others perceived her. Whispers of respect mingled with cautious curiosity, and some colleagues approached with tentative engagement, unsure how to interact with someone who had quietly demonstrated such decisive authority. Today, the stakes felt different. It wasn't a dramatic courtroom scene, but a complex web of influence, expectation, and unspoken evaluation. She walked through the halls, noting subtle gestures and glances. Some colleagues sought validation through eye contact, others measured their words carefully, and a few seemed to reassess assumptions they had once made. Authority, she reflected, was rarely immediate in its effects. Often it revealed itself slowly, in small adjustments, moments of deference, and the quiet acknowledgement that her input carried weight. The courthouse had been a clear, visible test. Here, It was iterative, nuanced, and persistent. Her first briefing involved senior advisors discussing a sensitive policy initiative. One member challenged her recommendation, testing her knowledge and composure. Alea responded with calm precision, breaking down her reasoning step by step and reinforcing each point with evidence. The room shifted subtly as colleagues leaned in, nodding and reconsidering previously held doubts. Influence, she understood, was cultivated quietly in the way one answered questions, framed arguments, and navigated interpersonal dynamics. It was invisible until it manifested in shifts of perception, decisions, and respect. After the meeting, she retreated to her office to review incoming communications. An email from Michael Reyes appeared. Your ability to navigate high-stakes situations with calm authority continues to impress. Influence grows quietly, but observably apply it thoughtfully. Alia smiled softly. Recognition, though welcome, was not her objective. The courthouse had taught her that the true measure of authority was the impact of her actions on the perceptions, decisions, and behaviors of those around her. The quiet accumulation of influence, she realized, could be far more powerful than a single visible display of control. Mid-morning brought an unexpected task. The chief of staff asked Aliyah to review a high-priority communication draft before it went public. She examined the document with meticulous care, identifying ambiguities, refining language, and ensuring tone and clarity aligned with both accuracy and credibility. When she returned it, the chief's guarded skepticism shifted to acknowledgement and subtle respect, conveyed through measured words and attentive posture. Authority, she reflected, often operated invisibly, revealed through the outcomes it produced rather than through overt assertion. Lunch offered a rare moment of reflection. Alia thought again about Officer Klein and the courthouse incident. Their assumptions and bias had been stark, yet a single moment of composed authority had corrected the imbalance. Today's victories were quieter, unfolding in subtle decisions, careful communication, and observable but understated influence. Authority, she realized, existed in multiple dimensions, some public and dramatic, others quiet, incremental, and cumulative. Both were essential. The afternoon brought a cross-departmental strategy session where conflicting priorities and perspectives clashed. Alia presented her analysis systematically, anticipating objections and addressing counterpoints with measured precision. Colleagues responded with engagement, nods of understanding, and subtle deference. The courthouse had taught her how authority could emerge dramatically under pressure. Today, it unfolded quietly, reinforced through competence, poise, and consistent clarity. Influence, she understood, was the product of repeated, deliberate action. Later, she returned to her office, reviewing internal communications from the courthouse. The officer's disciplinary review was moving forward, a quiet but meaningful confirmation that accountability was being enforced. Beyond personal vindication, the broader lesson was clearer. Bias and assumptions could be corrected effectively when met with calm authority and careful preparation. The true instruments of influence were clarity, skill, and integrity. Her phone buzzed with a message from a colleague, still impressed by your composure in the courthouse. Your calm authority sets an example. Alia allowed herself a soft smile. Recognition was gratifying, but the real satisfaction lay in understanding the subtle mechanics of influence, how consistent competence, clear communication, and measured presence shaped perceptions, decisions, and outcomes in ways that were both profound and lasting. As night fell over the city, Alaya sat at her desk, journaling about the day's lessons. The courthouse had been a dramatic test of composure and authority. Today had demonstrated how influence could be accumulated quietly, subtly, and effectively. Bias, scrutiny, and assumptions were constants, but she now understood how to navigate them, asserting authority without confrontation, influencing outcomes without overt force. Before turning off the lights, she paused to reflect, Dramatic moments could reveal authority instantly, but sustained influence was subtle, cumulative, and enduring. Both were essential, both were powerful. With that understanding, she felt prepared for the challenges ahead, fortified by skill, composure, and the quiet authority she wielded with precision. The next morning, Aaliyah entered the White House with her usual composed stride, but the air felt heavier. The courthouse incident, while resolved, had left its mark not just on her confidence, but on the way colleagues and observers now measured her. Some approached with respect, tinged with caution. Others watched from a distance, analyzing each movement, each word. Authority, she realized, was no longer a private quality. It was visible, scrutinized, and often misunderstood. Today would challenge her to wield it with both precision and subtlety. Her first meeting involved a policy briefing with senior advisors and several department heads. One individual, known for their assertive demeanor, challenged her position sharply, attempting to test her knowledge and poise. Alia responded with calm clarity, presenting evidence-backed arguments and preemptively addressing likely counterpoints. The room shifted. Skeptics leaned forward, nodding subtly, and a previously dismissive participant made no further interruptions. Authority, she knew, was not claimed by volume or intensity, but demonstrated through preparation, logic, and composure. After the briefing, she returned to her office to review communications. Michael Reyes's email appeared. Your ability to navigate scrutiny with calm precision continues to impress. Influence accumulates quietly, yet it is observed and remembered. Keep applying your skills thoughtfully. Alia smiled briefly, reflecting on the significance of the words. Recognition was secondary. The true measure of influence was the way her composure and competence reshaped perceptions and subtly redirected decisions. Mid-morning brought a high-priority request from the Chief of Staff. Review a sensitive memorandum for accuracy, tone, and clarity. Alia studied the document meticulously, identifying ambiguities, refining phrasing, and ensuring the content conveyed both authority and credibility. Upon her return, the chief's guarded skepticism softened to acknowledgement and quiet respect. Authority often revealed itself not through confrontation, she realized, but through the outcomes it produced and the confidence it inspired in others. During lunch, she reflected on Officer Klein's behavior at the courthouse. His assumptions and bias had been blatant, yet she had corrected them with calm authority and precise articulation. That single moment of control had produced a ripple effect, reminding her that composure and preparation could transform situations instantaneously. Today, however, the victories were quieter. Small adjustments, subtle cues, and repeated demonstrations of expertise. Influence was multifaceted. She realized dramatic in some moments, incremental in others. Both forms were equally vital. The afternoon brought a cross-departmental strategy session, with multiple perspectives clashing over priorities and solutions. Alia presented her research systematically, addressing objections before they became points of contention. Her calm demeanor, steady tone, and methodical logic shaped the room's dynamic. Colleagues engaged, nodded, and deferred, visibly acknowledging her insight without overtly declaring it. The courthouse had taught her authority could emerge dramatically. Here, it built gradually, reinforced by repetition, skill, and clarity. Influence, she understood, was cumulative and enduring when exercised consistently. Later, she reviewed correspondence from the courthouse regarding the ongoing disciplinary review of Officer Klein and his partner. The process was advancing, an institutional affirmation that bias and misjudgment carried consequences. Beyond personal vindication, the situation underscored a larger principle. Preparation and composure could transform moments of misjudgment into systemic correction, teaching both the affected and the observers. Influence was about creating lasting impact, not fleeting recognition. Her phone buzzed with a message from a friend. still in awe of how you handled the courthouse situation. Your calm authority is remarkable. Alia smiled softly, appreciating the acknowledgement. The lessons extended beyond the courthouse. Competence, clarity, and consistency shape perception more powerfully than confrontation or aggression. Respect and influence accumulated quietly but unmistakably, affecting outcomes across time and space. As evening settled over the city, she sat at her desk journaling about the day. The courthouse had been a vivid test of composure and authority. Today had reinforced the quiet, persistent accumulation of influence. Bias, assumptions, and scrutiny remained constants, yet she was learning how to navigate them effectively, asserting authority without confrontation and influencing outcomes without force. The true power, she realized, lay in the combination of calm precision, thorough preparation, and consistent demonstration of skill. Before closing her journal, she paused to reflect. Yesterday and today had revealed complementary truths. Dramatic moments could instantly demonstrate authority, but sustained influence was subtle, cumulative, and enduring. Both were essential for navigating complex dynamics, both in the White House and beyond. With this understanding, Alia felt prepared for the challenges ahead, fortified by competence, composure, and quiet authority capable of shaping perception, decisions, and outcomes alike. The morning light fell through the White House windows, illuminating the corridors in a golden haze. Alia entered with her usual composed stride, yet beneath her calm exterior, she felt the weight of observation. The courthouse incident, well behind her legally, had reshaped the perceptions of colleagues, supervisors, and even casual observers. Some treated her with cautious respect, others watched silently, measuring her every move. Authority, she realized, was no longer something private. It had become visible, constantly assessed, and subtly scrutinized. Today promised new challenges, ones that required the strategic deployment of influence and composure. Her first task involved a high-level briefing with senior advisors on a sensitive policy matter. One participant, known for testing newcomers with pointed questions, attempted to challenge her knowledge. Alia responded with calm precision, outlining her reasoning step by step, supporting each point with evidence, and addressing likely counter-arguments proactively. The subtle shift in the room was immediate. Skeptical colleagues leaned forward, nodding slightly, while the challenger, silent for the first time, considered her perspective without interruption. Authority, she recognized, was demonstrated through competence and composure, not force or volume. After the briefing, Alia returned to her office to review incoming correspondence. An email from Michael Reyes appeared. Your calm precision continues to command attention and respect. Influence is subtle but cumulative. Use it wisely. She smiled softly. Recognition was secondary. What mattered was the effect of her composure and preparation on the perceptions and decisions of others. Influence, she reflected, was not always visible in the moment. It was often observed quietly, accumulating weight until it shifted dynamics and outcomes in lasting ways. Mid-morning brought an urgent request from the Chief of Staff. Review a draft memorandum slated for imminent public release. Alia studied it meticulously, identifying ambiguous phrasing, refining tone, and ensuring clarity without sacrificing authority. When she returned it, the chief's guarded skepticism softened, replaced by subtle acknowledgement and respect. Authority, she understood, often revealed itself not in declarations, but in the confidence it inspired and the outcomes it produced. During lunch, she reflected on the courthouse incident. Officer Klein's assumptions had been blatant. His partner's passive compliance had amplified the tension. Yet a single moment of calm, precise authority had corrected the imbalance and transformed the situation. Today's victories were quieter, unfolding in subtle corrections, careful decisions, and repeated demonstrations of expertise. Influence, she realized, operated in multiple dimensions, dramatic when necessary, incremental when subtle, both equally vital. The afternoon brought a cross-departmental strategy session. Conflicting perspectives and competing priorities clashed, demanding careful navigation. Alia presented her research systematically, addressing objections before they became critical points of contention. Her calm demeanor, logical presentation, and thoughtful responses shaped the room's dynamic. Colleagues engaged, nodded, and deferred, acknowledging her insight without overtly declaring it. The courthouse had taught her that authority could emerge dramatically under pressure. Today, it unfolded quietly, strengthened by competence, poise, and consistency. Influence, she understood, was cumulative, observable in small shifts that ultimately shaped larger outcomes. Later, she reviewed communications from the courthouse regarding Officer Klein and his partner. The disciplinary review was progressing steadily, a quiet but meaningful confirmation that accountability followed misjudgment. Beyond personal vindication, the incident underscored a larger principle. Bias and assumptions could be challenged effectively when met with preparation and composure. Influence was not fleeting recognition, it was the creation of lasting impact through thoughtful action and strategic authority. Her phone buzzed with a message from a friend. "Your composure at the courthouse is still incredible. The way you assert quiet authority is inspiring." Alia smiled, appreciating the acknowledgement. The lessons extended beyond any single moment. Clarity, consistency, and deliberate presence shaped perception and decision-making far more effectively than confrontation or volume. Respect and influence accumulated subtly, yet their impact was unmistakable. As evening settled over the city, Alaya sat at her desk, journaling about the day. The courthouse had been a vivid, dramatic test of composure and authority. Today had reinforced the quieter, persistent accumulation of influence. Bias, assumptions, and scrutiny were constants, but she was learning how to navigate them effectively, asserting authority without aggression and influencing outcomes without force. The true power lay in clarity, preparation, and repeated demonstration of competence. Before closing her journal, she reflected. Yesterday and today had revealed complementary truths. Dramatic moments revealed authority immediately, while sustained influence was subtle, cumulative, and enduring. Both were essential for navigating complex dynamics, both in the White House and beyond. With that understanding, Alia felt prepared for the challenges ahead, fortified by skill, composure, and the quiet authority that now shaped perception, decisions, and outcomes alike. The next morning, Alia entered the White House corridors with a composed stride, yet a heightened tension lingered beneath the surface. The courthouse incident had become a reference point, quietly shaping perceptions and expectations. Colleagues now approached her with a mix of respect and caution, some silently evaluating her words and actions before speaking. Authority, she realized, was no longer a private quality. It was constantly observed, scrutinized, and interpreted. Today promised challenges that required her to wield influence with precision, foresight, and subtlety. Her first engagement involved a high-level briefing with senior advisors and department heads. One individual, known for their assertive and challenging demeanor, questioned her recommendations sharply, seeking to test her expertise. Alia responded calmly and deliberately, presenting her arguments clearly, supporting every point with evidence, and anticipating counterpoints. The room shifted subtly. Skeptics leaned in, acknowledging her preparation, while even the most confrontational participants paused to consider her perspective. Authority, she understood, was demonstrated not through volume or confrontation, but through competence, clarity, and composure under scrutiny. After the briefing, she returned to her office to review communications. An email from Michael Reyes appeared. "Your calm, deliberate approach continues to inspire respect. Influence is subtle but cumulative. Keep applying your skills thoughtfully." Alia allowed herself a brief smile. Recognition was secondary to her understanding that influence was built incrementally through consistent, precise actions. The courthouse had been a single dramatic test. The White House demanded ongoing demonstration, where the quiet accumulation of authority carried far-reaching consequences. Mid-morning brought a high-priority request from the Chief of Staff. Review a sensitive memorandum prior to public release. Alea examined the document meticulously, refining language, clarifying tone, and ensuring every detail conveyed accuracy and authority. When she returned it, the chief's guarded skepticism softened, replaced by subtle acknowledgement and respect. Authority, she realized, often revealed itself through the confidence it inspired and the outcomes it produced, rather than through overt assertion. During lunch, she reflected on Officer Klein's assumptions and bias at the courthouse. The blatant misjudgments had been corrected with calm precision in a single moment, but today's victories were quieter, unfolding through careful decisions, subtle interventions, and repeated demonstrations of expertise. Authority, she recognized, had multiple dimensions, some dramatic and immediate, others incremental and cumulative. Both were necessary and both were powerful. The afternoon presented a particularly challenging cross-departmental strategy session. Conflicting priorities and perspectives clashed, requiring careful navigation. Alea systematically presented her research, addressing objections before they escalated and framing solutions that integrated multiple viewpoints. Her calm presence and methodical reasoning shaped the dynamic of the room. Colleagues engaged attentively, nodded, and deferred subtly, acknowledging her insight without overt declaration. The courthouse had shown how authority could be revealed dramatically. Today, it was being reinforced quietly through competence, composure, and repeated demonstration. Later, she reviewed correspondence regarding the ongoing disciplinary review of Officer Klein and his partner. The process was advancing, a quiet but meaningful confirmation that accountability followed misjudgment. Beyond personal vindication, the situation reinforced a broader principle. Preparation and composure could transform moments of bias into systemic correction. Influence was not fleeting, it was enduring, shaped by thoughtful, consistent action. Her phone buzzed with a message from a colleague. Your calm authority of the courthouse is still remarkable. Your approach sets a standard. Alea smiled softly, appreciating the acknowledgement. The deeper lesson was clear. Competence, clarity, and consistency shaped perception and decision-making far more effectively than confrontation or loud assertion. Respect and influence accumulated subtly, yet their impact was profound and lasting. As evening fell, she sat at her desk journaling about the day. The courthouse had been a dramatic test of composure and authority. Today had reinforced the quieter, persistent accumulation of influence. Bias, assumptions, and scrutiny were constants, but she now understood how to navigate them effectively, asserting authority without confrontation and influencing outcomes without force. The true instruments of power were clarity, preparation, and repeated demonstration of competence. Before closing her journal, she reflected on a central truth. Dramatic moments revealed authority instantly, but sustained influence was subtle, cumulative, and enduring. Both forms were essential for navigating the complexities of power, perception, and expectation. With this understanding, Alea felt prepared for the challenges ahead, fortified by skill, composure, and quiet authority capable of shaping perceptions, decisions, and outcomes alike. The morning sunlight spilled across the White House corridors, highlighting the polished floors and the quiet hum of activity. Alea moved with her characteristic calm, yet a subtle tension lingered in her chest. The courthouse incident was behind her, but its lessons were ever present, shaping the way she navigated this complex environment. Some colleagues now regarded her with cautious respect, others with quiet curiosity, and a few seemed unsure how to engage with someone whose composure had proven uncheckable under scrutiny. Today felt different, heavier, charged with unseen expectations and the possibility of high-stakes confrontation. Her first meeting was a policy briefing involving senior advisors and department heads. One individual, known for their domineering style, launched a sharp testing challenge to her recommendations. Alia responded with calm precision, laying out her reasoning systematically, supporting every point with evidence, and addressing potential objections before they could arise. The subtle shift in the room was immediate. Skeptical colleagues leaned forward, nodding while the challenger paused, reconsidering the weight of her arguments. Authority, she understood, was most powerful when demonstrated through competence and poise rather than confrontation. After the briefing, she retreated to her office to review a series of sensitive communications. An email from Michael Reyes appeared. Your measured approach continues to command respect. Influence accumulates quietly and observably. Apply it wisely. Alia allowed herself a faint smile. Recognition, though welcome, was not her goal. The true measure of authority lay in its effect on the perceptions and decisions of those around her. The courthouse had been a dramatic test. Here, influence built incrementally, creating ripples that subtly reshaped outcomes. Mid-morning brought a high-priority task from the chief of staff: review a memorandum before its release. Alia scrutinized the document meticulously, refining language, clarifying tone, and ensuring accuracy and authority. When she returned it, the chief's guarded skepticism softened to acknowledgement, conveyed in subtle gestures and careful words. Authority, she reflected, was often invisible until it manifested in tangible outcomes and inspired confidence in others. Lunch provided a rare moment of reflection. Alia considered Officer Klein's blatant assumptions at the courthouse. A single instance of composed authority had corrected the imbalance, but today's victories were quieter, unfolding through subtle interventions, careful decisions, and repeated demonstrations of competence. Influence operated in multiple dimensions, dramatic in some moments, incremental in others, and both were equally vital for long-term impact. The afternoon brought a particularly contentious cross-departmental strategy session. Multiple perspectives clashed, each vying for priority. Alia presented her research systematically, anticipating objections and offering solutions that integrated competing interests. Her calm presence and methodical reasoning shifted the dynamic. Colleagues engaged attentively, nodded in agreement, and deferred subtly, acknowledging her insight without overt statements. The courthouse had revealed authority in a single dramatic moment. Today, influence grew quietly, reinforced through consistency, competence, and clarity. Later, she reviewed communications from the courthouse regarding Officer Klein and his partner. The disciplinary process was progressing steadily, a quiet but meaningful confirmation that accountability followed misjudgment. Beyond personal vindication, the situation reinforced a larger principle. Preparation and composure could transform moments of bias into lasting institutional corrections. Influence, she realized, was about enduring impact, not fleeting recognition. Her phone buzzed with a message from a colleague. Your calm authority in the courthouse is still inspiring. You set a standard that others notice. Alia smiled, appreciating the acknowledgement. The lessons extended beyond that single moment. Clarity, consistency, and deliberate presence shaped perception and decision-making more effectively than confrontation or volume. Respect and influence accumulated subtly, yet their effect was profound. As evening approached, she sat at her desk journaling about the day. The courthouse had been a vivid test of composure and authority. Today reinforced the quieter, persistent accumulation of influence. Bias, scrutiny, and assumptions were constants, but she now understood how to navigate them, asserting authority without aggression and influencing outcomes without force. The true power lay in clarity, preparation, and repeated demonstration of skill. Before closing her journal, she paused to reflect. Dramatic moments revealed authority instantly, but sustained influence was subtle, cumulative, and enduring. Both were necessary for navigating complex dynamics, both in the White House and beyond. With this understanding, Alia felt prepared for the approaching challenges, the tipping points where preparation, composure, and quiet authority would converge to produce definitive outcomes. She was ready. The morning sun rose over the White House, casting long, golden beams across the polished floors. Alia entered the corridors with her usual calm, steady stride, yet an undercurrent of anticipation ran through her. The courthouse incident, while behind her legally, had reshaped perceptions in profound ways. Today was different. It felt like a culmination, a moment where preparation, composure, and quiet authority would converge. Every colleague, every observer, and every decision seemed to carry weight. She could feel it in the subtle shifts in posture, the attentive glances, and the measured words exchanged around her. Her first engagement was a briefing on a sensitive national policy, attended by senior advisors and department heads. One particularly assertive participant challenged her recommendations sharply, attempting to test her knowledge and composure. Alia responded with calm precision, articulating her reasoning methodically and supporting every point with evidence. She anticipated counterpoints and addressed them before they fully emerged. The room shifted. Skeptical colleagues leaned forward, nodding, while even the most confrontational participants paused, reconsidering her arguments. Authority, she knew, was revealed not in volume or aggression, but in competence, clarity, and unwavering composure. After the briefing, Alia returned to her office to review incoming communications. An email from Michael Reyes appeared. "Your steady, measured approach continues to command respect. Influence is cumulative and observed, apply it wisely." She allowed herself a small smile. Recognition was gratifying, yet the true measure of authority lay in its effect on the decisions and perceptions of others. The courthouse had provided a single dramatic test. The White House demanded repeated demonstrations where influence built quietly and reshaped outcomes incrementally. Mid-morning brought a high-priority request from the Chief of Staff: review a memorandum set for public release. Alia scrutinized the document meticulously, refining phrasing, clarifying tone, and ensuring both accuracy and authority. When she returned it, the chief's guarded skepticism softened, replaced by subtle acknowledgement conveyed through careful words and measured gestures. Authority often worked in silence, she reflected, observable only in the outcomes it produced and the confidence it inspired in others. Lunch offered a rare moment of reflection. Alia thought about Officer Klein's assumptions at the courthouse and how a single moment of calm, precise authority had corrected the imbalance. Today's victories were quieter, yet equally powerful, unfolding through subtle corrections, careful decisions, and repeated demonstrations of expertise. Influence operated on multiple levels, dramatic in some instances, incremental in others, and both were essential for lasting impact. The afternoon brought the most challenging task yet, a cross-departmental strategy session involving conflicting priorities and high stakes. Alia presented her research systematically, anticipating objections, integrating multiple perspectives, and offering solutions that address competing interests. Her calm demeanor, methodical reasoning, and poised responses shaped the room's dynamic. Colleagues engaged attentively, nodded, and deferred subtly, acknowledging her insight without overt declaration. The courthouse had revealed authority in a single dramatic moment. Today, influence was manifesting quietly but unmistakably, reinforced by skill, clarity, and consistency. Later, she reviewed correspondence from the courthouse regarding Officer Klein and his partner. The disciplinary process had advanced to its conclusion, a quiet yet definitive affirmation that accountability followed misjudgment. Beyond personal vindication, the process illustrated a broader principle. Bias and assumptions could be corrected effectively through preparation, composure, and careful action. Influence, she realized, was about enduring impact, not fleeting recognition. Her phone buzzed with a message from a colleague. Your calm authority at the courthouse remains extraordinary. You set a standard that everyone notices and respects. Aaliyah smiled, appreciating the acknowledgement. The deeper lesson was clear. Competence, consistency, and measured presence shaped perceptions and decisions far more effectively than confrontation or volume. Respect and influence accumulated subtly, yet their impact was profound and lasting. As evening descended, Alea sat at her desk, journaling the day's events and lessons. The courthouse had been a vivid test of composure and authority. Today had demonstrated the quiet, persistent accumulation of influence, culminating in visible, tangible outcomes. Bias, scrutiny, and assumptions remained constants, but she now understood how to navigate them effectively, asserting authority without aggression, influencing outcomes without force. The true instruments of power were clarity, preparation, and repeated, deliberate demonstration of competence. Before closing her journal, she reflected, dramatic moments could reveal authority instantly, but sustained influence was subtle, cumulative, and enduring. Both were necessary to navigate complex dynamics, both in the White House and beyond. Today, the lessons of composure, preparation, and quiet authority had culminated in decisive impact. She felt prepared for whatever new challenges awaited, fortified by skill, clarity, and the quiet, unshakable authority she had honed over time. The courthouse had tested her, the White House had shaped her, and now she stood poised, confident, and triumphant.